Okay, recording has started. Welcome, everybody. This is the NOA Community Call number 8. If you can believe it, we're already at number 8. So there's only one item on the agenda today. Apologies again for everybody for just kind of scheduling it without asking, but we really wanted to get this in before the end of the year, and everybody's got tight schedules. So obviously this is going to be recorded, and so if you're watching this on YouTube later, thanks for watching. But this is mostly going to be sort of a quick summary, high-level summary of everything that's happened with the legal analysis and our thoughts and impressions on it, the document that we wrote up about it, and then a big kind of Q&A and discussion session because there's sort of a lot to parse through here. I think things are. This is really impactful for the future of what we're trying to do, and so. Need to make sure that everybody's opinion is heard and that we gather feedback and get everything moving in the right direction here. So Nick was kind enough to be the first author on the legal summary. I just mostly was helping to edit it and all that, but we were both involved in the discussions with the attorneys Fried Frank. We had they were expensive but certainly worth the cost. I think they gave us a really in-depth legal analysis about what to expect, the limitations and the pros and cons of various different structures that we could potentially use moving forward. And we'd love to talk about that today. So, as mentioned, there is a legal summary document that Nick wrote, which is it's posted in the general channel right now. And if you want to take a look at it, please do. It's fairly long and detailed, so if you have any questions or anything like that afterwards, then you can always reach out, and we can also we'll be covering these topics sort of in high level detail today, just as a summary form. So if you don't really want to read through like 9 pages of in-depth, really it's 9 pages of a summary of all the legal research that we did. So it's actually, already condensed as much as we could possibly do, but we're going to try and condense it even more for this call, so everybody's sort of on the same page before we move into the Q&A. So, Nick, would you do us the favor, since you wrote that summary, of providing an even further summary of your summary? Sure thing. Yeah, thanks so much, Nick. Really appreciate you giving that, in-depth summary there. I think that pretty much covers the majority of the high-level points that are laid out in the document. There are definitely some details in there that, I would suggest reading the document to get a fuller picture. But we can also provide everybody, if you're interested. There's, we have a bunch of sort of mostly informal, but we do have some. Writings and things like that we have, email chains and stuff like that where we've engaged with the attorneys on this stuff. It's taken us a lot of time to sort of collate all of these details into a single document. That's probably the best source that you'll get. But if if you don't believe us or whatever, then, we're happy to provide our, the original sources of truth from the attorneys if you want to sort of see what they had to say about it. But yeah, I mean, based on this, we have a couple choices. We laid this out basically at the bottom of the document that there's really a choice, I think, ahead of us as a community at this point. And I know what I would like to do. I think I'm a technical guy. I've been a software engineer for a very long time. I have a business and entrepreneurial background, but I think I can provide the most value by actually just producing work. Being a part of a team that creates this thing. So to me, I really want to focus on doing that. And so I think what that means for now, most likely, is that I'm going to focus, at least personally, I'm going to focus on trying to start building here. And based off of our research so far, it seems like that team is going to have to be organized in a different way than how we've been approaching things so far. So as a community, we kind of have we have a choice to make for the future of our community at this point. Do we say, we're going to keep the community together and we're going to try and, refocus the entire thing away from a protocol and away from a specific, development effort, and towards more community-oriented stuff like educational and certification activities, things that a nonprofit could do and would not really have challenges doing. A lot of the issues that basically we run into are because of protocol development. So if we sort of abandon that goal as a community, things become a lot easier to become a nonprofit in that. And in that case, it makes plenty of sense to consider a 501c3 structure, which would have tax benefits to any donators and things like that. So there are a lot of reasons why I think that could work. The downside is we have to basically completely abandon the idea of a protocol. And that's, in large part, I think, personally, one of the biggest, most compelling things to me about what we're trying to do is, provide additional income streams to existing stakers and, at the same time, do that in a way that decentralizes the network and helps grow the network health, and being a good ecosystem partner, basically. And if that's not possible to do with a nonprofit, then I'm a little personally less interested in working on a nonprofit that can't do things like that. I mean, if it's educational stuff or working on standards discussions and things like that, we've already had a lot of great discussions with a bunch of different staking communities, including ETHStaker, including Stakewise V3 is coming soon, and they're very excited to try and work with us on staking standards for permissionlessness on their end. We've talked to Lido about this in the past. It seems like a demand that the entire industry has at the moment that we'd like to work on, but it's not necessarily a high priority for me as an individual, like personally. So basically all this to say, I'm interested personally in building a protocol. That's something I'm most excited about. And so I'm going to focus on doing that, and doing whatever it takes to do that. So most likely that will, be building a team to focus on that. But if the community wants to stick, to refocus basically and stick together under a different goal, a different higher priority goals, then we certainly can do that. I probably won't be able to devote as much time to it, since, like I said, my priority would be protocol development. That's where I can provide the most value personally. But I I want to respect the community's desire to do that if you want to do that. So technically, as the admin for this server, um, I'm very happy. Nick and I are both admins, but we can give it up. That's one option. If the community wants to go ahead and reorganize around these new goals, then very happy to relinquish control to whoever wants to take that on. That's not a problem at all, and we'll go. I'll take a look at the things that need to be done for the protocol in a completely different light, essentially. The other option is if nobody wants to do that, at the end of the day, it is going to require significant effort for that kind of thing to succeed too. It's a different kind of effort, but if nobody really wants to do that, then we could just sort of repurpose the existing Discord server, the community, to focus around the new thing, the protocol development in particular. So it's essentially, at a very, very high level, what's sort of coming out of this in-depth legal research that we've done is that the community essentially needs to make a decision as to what its highest priority is. Is it going to be the protocol development? Is it going to be the creation of something that would provide additional income streams to node operators? Provide a product that's better than everything else that's out there right now. All things that really I think have a high chance of succeeding. And having a really good and high impact on the ecosystem at large, or do we want to, prioritize the more nonprofit oriented goals like education, standards creation, certification, et cetera, et cetera. So at this point, this is really sort of the point where it's not really my decision to make, it's not Nick's decision to make, and it's not really anyone's decision to make. This is sort of the community as a whole, I think, needs to come together and kind of make a determination as to what makes the most sense moving forward. And so this is, I think, the point where it's good to open this up for discussion and Q&A and communication, and just start that process of working through our priorities and discussing them and seeing where we are as a community and what we want to do moving forward. So I'm going to go ahead and shut up now and take some questions, because I think that's probably going to be the most valuable thing for everybody right now. I'm sure there's a lot of thoughts in people's head. Why is this the case? Why is that the case? So feel free to ask away, raise your hand, or do anything if you have any questions about. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Nick, for that too. Yeah, it will probably surely take some time for everybody to kind of digest everything. It's just a lot of information sort of being dumped at once. That's why we wanted to release the legal document, or the summary of our legal findings yesterday, or in advance of this, so people had a little bit of time to take a look at it. But if you are watching this later and you're like, oh, I missed the call, or I was on it, but I forgot to ask this thing, or didn't think of something, that definitely let us know. We'll be happy to discuss pretty much at any time. We've been living and breathing this stuff for the past couple of months to get to this point, so we're more than happy to kind of give whatever context you'd like. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and open it up. I mean, I don't know if anybody is going to have any questions right now, but if you don't feel bad. But we can always continue the conversation later. But we just kind of wanted to get this in front of the community as quickly as possible, basically, so people could begin thinking about it and making some good thoughts happen. Start the discussion. So I don't see any hands raised right now, but feel free to there's one. Okay, Daniela, I'll bring you up. All right. If you're speaking, we cannot hear you. Ah. Yeah, absolutely appreciate it. That we'll definitely do that. There's yeah, at the moment we haven't even really thought about mechanics of actually anything. So we'll definitely we'll probably make a post and then just leave it up there for whatever however much time is required to get rough community consensus essentially. And however long that takes, I mean, depends. If people are still debating it, I'll put a post up in the announcements channel. People can vote with an emoji or something. And if people are still debating it, 2 weeks later, then we'll just keep leaving it up. And if eventually people are not talking about it anymore and we've kind of reached a consensus, then I think we'll all sort of know at that point. So I do agree we shouldn't let it go on forever and ever. So at some point we will probably want to cut off debate, but yeah, that's what we'll kind of leave it up to the community to sort of figure out when that happens. Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for your question. Always happy to elucidate. I'll give a little bit more detail here on that number. It's still sort of an estimate, right? We're not going to, if the community decides, all right, yeah, then it makes sense to move forward with the for-profit structure, then we're not going to just like immediately put a slide deck together and go, get investment for $1 million. Like we're going to do deep financial analysis, do some market research, things like that to sort of solidify the numbers. We have kind of a high level model right now that we're working with, but it's not detailed, or at least not detailed enough, I think, to be appropriate to attract investment. So we would need to, have that be a little bit more fleshed out and just, a little bit more concrete. It could be more, it could be less. There is a possibility that realistically, when we were doing the estimates so far, the nonprofit, like we mentioned, does present some extra challenges, and so that number would probably be higher for a nonprofit, but just slightly, because mostly we're totaling up what it would take to build a protocol, and then the nonprofit side of things, there may be higher legal costs associated with, maintaining your nonprofit status. There's, some. Yes, it is. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. So it's, I mean, to give a little bit more nuance, at the high level, the number, whatever we, come up with as a final estimate, basically for creating the protocol itself, development is development, and it doesn't really matter who's doing it as long as they're paid appropriately, and that cost will be pretty static for the most part. Now, one thing to mention though is something that Nick did talk about before. In addition to some of the extra challenges that a nonprofit entity would have at like a high level just for funding itself, there are some expectations that developers, especially in this space, have in terms of equity compensation. So that, I mean, if I were going to work with a protocol, then I would expect there to be a significant amount of equity, as part of my compensation package. And so, in addition to competitive pay, that's just kind of what the space looks like. Fintech in general is like that, not just crypto, but it's just part of the way that things go. And so, especially if you want a highly qualified developers, you could get a junior developer, but that comes with its own set of issues, right? And yeah, maybe we could find Joe. I heard he's a junior developer. But yeah, I just wanted to give a little bit more color there. So it's not exact. I wouldn't call it exactly equal. Like number is number, but so there's some nuance there. But it's really, when we're doing the thinking about it, like the $1 million, quote unquote, right, is a high level estimate of what we think it might take basically to build this thing out and do it effectively. There may be some other costs associated with different entities in different ways of doing it. So if we were to have a nonprofit, there would be like obviously the high level cost of creation, but if we're going a nonprofit route, then we can't do a protocol. So now the cost is significantly lower. Like if you just want to have a nonprofit that focuses on industry relations and promotion, education, et cetera, then all of that is just essentially the legal costs to do the startup, and then whatever we want to pay or compensate people who work on that full time. That it is important to keep in mind that most nonprofits generally kind of work off of the back of volunteers. Not really going to be able to provide a high level of compensation. Money is always limited. That's just kind of the reality of a nonprofit in general. And that's one of the reasons we were so excited about the potential for a protocol to sort of offset a lot of the financial and funding challenges that a nonprofit might traditionally have. But given the challenges that we'll have with this one in particular, or the development of this protocol in particular, it doesn't make sense. So on that topic, actually, I do want to bring up something else that I forgot to mention earlier, which is part of the legal summary that we put together mentions this very briefly, but I really want to highlight that I do think that this nonprofit structure would work much better for a mature and stable protocol. If we don't have to actively manage things, if you don't have the development costs associated with groundbreaking new development, you don't have the you don't have the issues of trying to attract capital if there's already a lot of money in the system and it's stable and it generates a stable amount of revenue, things like that. A nonprofit is a good structure for something like that, which is why you see, I think, a lot of these protocols like Uniswap, for example, has recently made a big proposal to create a 501c3 to sort of assist their development and the community as a whole, because they're much more stable, right? They have the development work there is paid for, but again, the development work is paid for by a for-profit company, Uniswap Labs, and that for-profit company was able to go out and get investors to create the thing in the first place, and then there's a DAO component to the whole thing. It's very complicated, and realistically, like down the line, that's the kind of thing that really makes sense if you have a mature protocol that can be automated fully and doesn't have some of the challenges that a newer protocol would have, especially one like ours, which will, be very highly managed. Well, more highly managed than Rocket Pool, for example. It's not permissionless initially, but then down the line, we may get to a point where we can go fully permissionless once the technology gets there. And then that might be a great time for us to reevaluate the situation and say, is this, if we're creating a protocol that starts out as a sort of a for-profit enterprise, there may be a way to sort of do an exit to community, maybe create a token of some sort, create a DAO. There's all sorts of options available out there. And I think that it would work fairly well for a stable protocol to utilize a nonprofit in this way. But just for our specific situation, and especially for the beginnings here, I don't think it makes as much sense to have. We can't have a protocol and a nonprofit right now. It's kind of one or the other, basically. So, yeah. Yeah. One of the big pieces of analyses that we did during this was not just legal analysis, right? We also mentioned that we dove really deep into how this stuff works on a technical level, and tried to do some incentive analyses on what the various participants in the system are going to want to see and how they're going to act and behave, assuming that they have particular goals in mind. So depositors are going to want to see best in class yield forever. And they're going to want to see as much freedom as possible. And so it's pretty easy to develop something that is just an opportunity for people to come in. Maybe you could attract some customers, just like a traditional staking company. You go out there, you get your customers, you bring them in, for the vanilla supernode, which Rocket Pool has been developing so far. It's much more like privately, administrated. It's not like a protocol style thing. It's much more of like a traditional arrangement, just with some sort of on-chain enhancements. So just like you would see for a regular SaaS company that, like Stakefish or Figment, or some of the two biggest ones that I like to call out as like a traditional staking company. They go out, they gather customers, they put the money into their infrastructure, and they have an agreement, like with a contract, to give people their money, their rewards from the staking. And it's a very centralized endeavor. It's a very sort of singular focus on providing a financial service. It's like highly for-profit. The people that found it are making 100% basically of the revenues there, or the investors. And we're going to have to do something if we want to create a protocol that does the same thing. We're going to have to essentially approach it in the same manner, but we can create a better product if it's a protocol. It won't be centralized. It would also benefit the community by providing extra income streams. It's immediately decentralizing the architecture so that it's not necessarily centralized around a single entity and their infrastructure or whatever it looks like. Like Nick brought this up recently. Stakefish went down for some amount of hours recently, and that loses all their customers a ton of money. But with us, it wouldn't be much of an issue as long as it was decentralized. So we're creating a better product, but the issue being that at the end of the day, it is still a sort of a for-profit thing, which kind of means that it needs to be a for-profit entity. So one of the things I think that we're sort of aiming at right now is saying, what is the question really? It comes down to saying you could create this like the Rocket Pool vanilla supernode. You could take that. You could make a staking service with it. Anyone here could. You just take the code, you deploy it. You go out, you get your customers, just like Stakefish. Stakefish could do this. They could take the Rocket Pool infrastructure, deploy it, and then start putting their validators on that instead. But they would run all of the validators still. So that would still be an inferior product to a decentralized one. But at the end of the day, it is possible to do. It's just that to do, and this is where our sort of analysis comes into play, is where we're saying you can do that with the code that's already written. It's cheap to do. Rocketpool is going to put some more work into it, in the near future here. But the problem being that basically only gives you as a staking entity an extra sort of, it helps you sort of with some efficiency stuff internally. You get a little, I mean, you get the RETH commissions, so you get kind of gain that revenue stream as well, but it's not really providing anything brand new to the market. It's not really helping the ecosystem at all. It is sort of because you're building on top of Rocketpool, but it's still centralized, right? You're still building a centralized staking as a service operation. And so, my view is that that's not really very useful. It's sort of a net neutral to the Ethereum ecosystem. It's not a positive thing. It's not really a negative thing either. It's just kind of like a neutral thing. So my outlook is that I'd prefer to, work on something that's going to be a little bit more win-win for everybody, basically. All right, so we talked a bunch there, but any more questions? Anyone else have any thoughts or topics to bring up here? I don't see any hands raised, but just want to double check. All right, I'm going to keep talking just because I don't see anybody's hands raised. There's one other thing I was thinking about too. I wanted to mention, no matter which way the community decides to go on this, we will, of course, leave up all of the information that has been discussed so far. I mean, it's community property, in my opinion. I mean, everybody donated, so you get the legal analysis. This is the work you paid for, right? So this is going to remain up forever. We're not going to erase any sort of the old chat logs or anything either. Might throw them into like an archive category if we move forward in a different way. Actually, we'll probably have to do that just because we'll be shifting focus of this community to a nonprofit if somebody wants to step up and lead that, or we'll be shifting the Discord to focus on the protocol. In both cases, the old discussions won't be quite as relevant, but we want to leave it up there because it's obviously still community property. So nothing really will change in that regard. I mean, nothing will change in general. It's just that we kind of have to pick a path to move forward at this point. We've reached a fork in the road, and we kind of need to pick, do we go left or do we go right? And I know which way I'm going, and obviously as an individual I can make that choice, but I can't make that choice for the community. So, and since this Discord server is, it has, I think, nearly 300 people on it at this point. So I want to respect the choice of the community as to what to do with the server itself. And so, we want to leave that room for discussion there. But yeah. Anything else to add, Nick? I'm racking my brain trying to think of things at this point. Yeah. We do appreciate everybody here so far kind of bearing with us on this process. It's not been very fun, I think, for anybody. At the end of the day, nobody really loves to do legal stuff. But, yeah, I don't know, maybe some lawyers out there, maybe they really love their jobs or something. But it's not something I love to do personally. So, yeah, and I know the community probably doesn't really want to hear all about this endlessly anyway. So I'm personally glad we're kind of done with this phase regardless. No matter which way we go, at this point, it's done. So we can cross that off our list. Something else to mention quickly before we go. The legal bills, as estimated, were higher than our treasury. So we're gonna have to figure out a way to pay for that. Like I said, the product of the legal analysis was it's community property, right? So ideally, we would source the money from the community since you're going to have the product available to you. But if it, we're going to try and get donations or do what we can to get grants and things like that. If it doesn't work out, we'll find a way to pay for it or figure it out on our own. This sort of underscores and highlights the challenges that we face as a community. I think, moving forward around sourcing funding. And it's a good sort of example of why, if we're going to be building something in this space, that it needs to be, it needs to be for profit in order to attract investment in order to get it off the ground. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that real quick because we basically entirely spent the entire treasury on this, and yeah, we'll have to sort of figure out a way to pay for the rest of the bills separately. So if anyone's feeling generous, we would certainly appreciate help with that. But oh, Marcel, I see you have your hand up. So hang on, let me invite you up here. Oh, you got him. Thanks. Oh, awesome. Great questions, both of them. So we'll have to get back to you on the exact number, but Nick, correct me if I'm, yeah. Yep. And the other thing to ask, or to answer your question more directly about the seed round, yes, we'll have to. I mean, like I said, that's the direction that I want to go in with development of the protocol. So I'll be trying. That's essentially the next step for me, is to try and put together a team. I have entrepreneurial experience, so this isn't something I'm brand new to. And I feel pretty confident that I can get a pitch together and make this make sense for people. So we'll be doing that's my plan at the moment, is to work on a seed round, essentially probably early next year, to begin the process, because it will be expensive to develop this protocol, but we all know the reasons why it's useful, so we want to do it. But yeah, it'll probably be a private seed round of some sort. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Privilege of being a moderator is you get to put yourself on stage like that. It's nice, isn't it? Anyone else have anything to bring up? I mean, we can always, of course, we're heading up on almost an hour here of discussion, so we can kind of end it here if no one else had any questions, and take it off to the async chat if we need to. But I'll just give you guys a second to think about it before we close out the call. All right, going once. Going twice. I see no hands. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate everybody attending today, and appreciate the good questions from everybody. And yeah, we'll be continuing the chat and discussion on the server here. And yeah, we'll go ahead and I'll make a post under the announcements channel probably, and we could just kind of do an informal emoji vote, I guess, for how people want to handle the community moving forward. And yeah, thanks everybody. And we'll see you. We'll probably I think, yeah, at this point it's too late in the year really to do anything other than just kind of have this async vote. But yeah, hopefully early next year we'll have a great start to 2023 with like a brand new direction for the community. Whichever way we decide is going to be a brand new direction, so it's exciting, and yeah, looking forward to things. So thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your day.